Welcome! I'm Johan Nilsson.
And I'm Lincoln Murphy, and this is Impact Weekly. We're here to help you make your customers successful. Each week, we answer your most pressing customer success management questions by relying on our years of experience with companies around the world.
Let's get this going. Hey everyone, welcome back to Impact Weekly. New week, new question. Let's get into it. How do you show the importance of customer success to the wider team? That's the question. And this is something I hear a lot. And I think we pick up this from a lot of the heads of customer success and the teams we talk to. So I think it's a very interesting question to dig into for this week.
This comes up quite a bit. I think we should start with looking at the question in more detail. Reading between the lines, it's pretty right to the point. How do you show the importance of customer success to the wider team? But I think there's actually a lot going on in this very simple question. And to me, the thing that really sticks out is how do you show the importance of customer success, the importance, which kind of tells me that they're feeling like at least other parts of the team doesn't see customer success as important. There's something going on here where they're feeling like customer success isn't being seen in the right way inside their company.
Yeah, let's start there. Like, why is that? And maybe also like, why is that to the different parts of the team, the different departments? Maybe we could just go through that. Why can it be that they don't see customer success as important?
Yeah, if we just break down the common different departments in a company, if we're talking about like a software as a service company, the first one that comes to mind is product. And so the product development team will often look at customer success as something that's not necessarily that important because they feel like the product will do the job itself.
Right.
We don't need anything else. The product is perfect or we're good. We don't need you. So I think that's one thing from that standpoint that comes to mind.
It's like the engineer mindset. Yeah, you just follow the instruction and you work through the product, right? What else do you need, right?
So there's a type of company out there that would call itself product-led or product-led growth, PLG. And you see this a lot in companies that sort of self-identify as product-led, where it's almost the product will do everything. It'll do all the heavy lifting and we don't need anything else. And of course, that's just not true. And even in companies that, again, are identified as product-led growth, the most successful ones have very robust customer success operations. But that's, I think, for product, that's the misconception is just that we're good. We don't need you. The product will do everything that the customer needs.
Yeah. No, but definitely. And I think also, and maybe this goes through most of these other departments as well, is that you still see customer success as some glorified support, right? So that could also play into even from a product team, why they don't see the importance.
That's a really good point. If customer success is seen as just a different type of customer support, and you're absolutely right, that is very often the case. Just so we would say in general inside of your company, that's probably how customer success is looked at. We can get in as we are into the specific different teams and how they view customer success. But I think in general, that's probably something that is pervasive inside of your company. And so from a product standpoint, if they see customer success as simply a different type of support, then it makes even more sense that they wouldn't really see customer success as important because their product needs no support. It's perfect. So, so they just don't see the need for...
With the odd bug happening once in a while.
Yeah, that's included on purpose to keep things interesting.
That's one part of the organization, of course. But let's what else do we have? We have finance, like a CFO or the finance team. Why is it they don't necessarily see customer success as important?
Finance will often look at customer success as simply a cost center. Is that just a function of finance literally looking at the costs associated with the customer success organization? Or is that a perception issue? You would think, no, finance looks at things in numbers. So if we were doing everything right, they would see that, yes, we have a cost, but we're also driving growth and we're more than paying for our existence. We're actually generating revenue. But that's not always how things work. And so finance may simply look at customer success as a cost center,
Mm.
due in part to a misconception,
Oh,
just
yeah.
a different perception. And so that's something that needs to be worked on. But yeah, might not come down to simply just a numbers game.
If you perceive customer success as support, again, that is like a cost of managing customers, and maybe we could reduce that, and we could, with a bot or simplify things, we remove some of the tickets and then remove the cost and so on. Can also
Well,
be that finance have the same mindset there as well.
yeah, to your point, I've not seen this very often, but I have actually, it's just popped back into my brain. I have had discussions that completely threw me off because there was talk of redundancy because customer success is just a different type of support. So why do we have both customer success and support? So let's reduce headcount, let's combine those. And it's, whoa, what? And that's the kind of, when that comes up, and you're me, and you're
Yeah.
so far down the road in terms of the way that customer success should exist in an organization, and you run into somebody with that very outdated view of it, almost doesn't compute initially. But I have run into that. It's
Yeah.
luckily not something that happens all the time. That goes back to that perception issue that customer
Mm.
success is just simply another type of support. And so isn't it redundant? No,
Yeah.
obviously not.
Obviously not. I will get back to how you can actually win them over to your side here. But let's keep looking at these different teams and why they might not see customer success as important. So maybe sales marketing, we could talk about that as well.
For sure. Yeah.
Bundle them together. They might not like that themselves, but let's do it for this.
So we're combining new business acquisition and whatever is required to do that. So
Mm.
sales and marketing combined. Look, they're focused on bringing in net new customers. And that either doesn't have anything to do with customer success, like customer success is unnecessary, or they can even look at customer success as the buzzkill who
Yeah.
tries to get them to not sign certain customers because those customers are a bad fit or don't have
Mm.
success potential. And so it's customer success is just this organization or this part of the company that tries to keep us from making money, tries to keep us from bringing in new customers. So you can have that negative aspect of it, or it's just customer success isn't the enemy. It's just you don't really have anything to do with what we do. So
Right.
we just don't really have much use for you.
And also acquisition might be the only thing the company focuses on. What they do is what people celebrate. It's what's being shared at the weekly meetings. It's what's everybody is focused on. So that it's not as much as they don't see the importance. The focus is elsewhere, right?
The leader of whatever part of the company,
Mm.
they're going to be focused on themselves and their
Yep.
team and their results.
Mm.
And they're not going to really worry about other teams. Marketing and sales are going to be talking about what they do.
Yeah.
And that's bringing in new customers. And the reality is they do a much better job, especially sales does a much better job
yeah.
of promoting themselves and making sure that everyone knows how important they are. I think there's a misconception that
Oh yeah.
like this idea of a sales driven organization and this idea that everybody just inherently understands how absolutely important sales is. I'm not saying that there's not some truth to that. It's a pretty obvious thing that we need to bring in new customers. I don't think anybody would argue with
Mhm.
that. But I think the reason sales is seen as such an important part of the business is because you have sales leaders that are constantly telling everyone how
Yeah.
important they are and how important their team is and how important the work that they do is. And so they're advocating for themselves and their team. They're evangelizing the concept of sales, even though it's fully established. It's
Yeah.
not something that needs to be promoted, but they know that they need to make sure that they have all the resources they need, that they are seen as important as they truly are. And so
Mm.
they make sure that everyone knows this. And so a situation where you are a sales driven organization and sales is seen as so important, that's at least as much a function of the sales leader promoting themselves and their team as
Yeah.
it is just this natural idea that we need to acquire customers.
Yeah.
So they're busy promoting themselves. They're not really going to worry too much
Yeah.
about you and customer success.
You will never hear a sales manager asking this question for sales, right?
That's 100% accurate. I've never encountered anybody in sales ask about how to show their importance to the wider team ever.
No, but I think I think we're hitting a very key point to this question and why this question comes up a lot and how, and also probably the answer. We'll get into that soon. But maybe we should touch also what the leadership team C-level, you would assume that they would see the importance, but that's not always the case either.
It is really interesting because in theory, somebody had to sign off on the investment to create this customer success organization. Somebody had to think that it was a good idea to do this in the first place. You have to wonder, why would the executive team not see customer success as something strategically valuable? But we have to go back to things are done for different reasons. It's very possible that you have a CEO that was talking to their CEO friends, and it turns out all of their buddies also have
Mm,
customer
right.
success teams. And so they thought they needed to have one too. It could have been pressure from investors, from a board. And so they spun up this organization without really understanding why. That can happen. I'm not saying that's a common scenario, but I have seen that.
Yeah.
I think what happens though, probably more, what's more likely is
Mm,
it was spun up with good intentions, and for whatever reasons, and we can talk more about
mm,
these in a minute, it didn't live up to expectations. Things were not communicated properly by the head of customer success, whatever. And
mm.
now you have an executive or group of executives that look at customer success as being something less than it could be, or that
Yeah.
than it should be. And that's probably
Yes.
the more likely scenario. So where they saw it being a
Mm,
driver of net revenue retention, now they don't see it that way because it didn't pan out the way that they hoped it would, where it really was that driver
mm.
of NRR. And then that becomes a cycle, right? Where
Yes, of
now
course.
the head of customer success says, "Oh, okay, leadership doesn't see us as a driver of NRR. I guess we're not,
Mm,
or we're at the mercy of these other parts of the organization that keep us from fully achieving the NRR results that
yeah.
we thought we should have." Which brings
Yeah.
up a point that you were making before we started recording.
Yes.
You said this question of how would you show the importance of customer success? You would never ask this about sales. Like, how do we show the importance
No.
of sales? The same
And
thing goes for,
yeah,
getting executives on board.
I think the parallel is very important here because sometimes you see the customer success team or the head of customer success not really wanting to assume the full ownership of net revenue retention because we're dependent of product, we're dependent of this and that. In reality, if we compare this to sales, in the parallel with sales is also very much dependent on the product, on the marketing, on all these other factors
Yes.
of the company as well. But they make this, as you talked about earlier, Lincoln, which I think is very important. They talk about sales. They make sure that everybody understands the importance of sales, and they assume ownership of their quota, of their monthly, quarterly, whatever quota they have, and how to deliver on that. I think this is where customer success have we can do a lot more here.
think about it. If there are things that are going to impact the ability of sales to hit their numbers, the head of sales is going to do whatever they can to fix those things. They're going to go to product and say, you have to fix these things because this is affecting our close rate. Customers are bringing these things up because they're seeing it in reviews. We have to fix these. They're going to go to marketing and say, you're not bringing in enough leads. You're not bringing in the right kind of leads. They're not going to just sit back and let themselves be at the mercy of these other parts of the company. It's not that sales doesn't have these other things that influence them. They take control of it and they advocate for their team. And so in customer success, we say, I don't want to be fully in control of NRR because we're at the mercy of product or of sales and marketing, bringing in wrong types of customers or whatever. Yeah. So you need to advocate for, I think that's really important. So I think all of this goes back to now why leadership can look at CS and say, they're not really taking full ownership of NRR because you're not. And by the way, if you're listening to this live, we have our head of customer success training that starts on October 9th. And we go into all of this, like how to actually position your organization for success. But whether you take our training or not, this is something that's so incredibly important to do. You have to be the advocate for yourself as head of customer success. You have to be the advocate for your team. Yeah. And ultimately, this is advocating for your customers as well.
Right.
So it's super important. But I think even though we do cover this stuff in the training, I think we can give you some ideas now that whether you take our training or not, that will help you. The training is obviously going to deep dive on this stuff, but we can give you some ideas on how to change their minds or win them over going back through those same teams.
Yeah. Let's get into that, I think. And we hit it off with product. We started with that. Well, what can we do here to win them over or make them understand better how we are important?
Yeah, I think product. So one of the things that I think just as a baseline is I always like to start with a positive. So when I'm talking to product, I don't want to just lead with, hey, we have these issues. That's not a great way to start conversations.
They're people. They are people as well, right?
For sure. We're working with humans and we have to understand how humans operate. And generally speaking, if you come at somebody with a negative, they're just going to put up their defenses and not hear anything else that you say. So we want to make sure that we come to people with something that's going to be constructive, not criticism, but just something that's going to be constructive and positive. And so what I like to do with product is talk about new or different use cases. Hey, our customers are really liking this new thing that you just put out. In fact, here's a couple of ways they're using it that you may not have thought about or you may not have seen. So that will get them like kind of excited. Oh, cool. Of course, they might say, oh, we totally thought of that, but it's really cool to see our customers using it that way. So that's one thing. You brought up one about new feature adoption, which I thought was a really good idea.
No, but I think I fully agree there. And also, if you look from the product team side, what they've been working on, long hours, tight deadlines probably, is what was their latest release or bigger release? What was the new feature they launched? I think it's always good to tap into that and maybe share, like, in my portfolio, these 10 customers have adopted this new feature. Are you interested to understand why and how we got there? I think
totally.
Like that will pick their interest and they will start, okay, but why not these other 10 or these other 100? And then all of a sudden they will start to understand how important our job in customer success is to make this happen and how we need to work with the customer and talk goals and all these other things we do. But I think pick something that's really top on mind and engage with that. I think it's lead with the positive, as you said.
Yeah. So leading with the positive, talking about something that they just released. There's something called recency bias, which is a human trait that we tend to focus on things that have happened recently and things that have happened even not too long ago. If other things have happened since then, those other things feel like a long time ago. And I think with product development, I'm not really interested in hearing about this feature that we released 3 quarters ago. It's that's old news. So talk to me about something cool and new. I think it's really important to come at this with that understanding. And remember that, again, we're working with humans here.
Yeah.
One other thing is just invite them to customer calls, especially like a Zoom call, maybe where the customer is showing their screen.
Mm.
Can you really get some interesting insight into how customers are actually using things? It's a great way to just involve them. And also they will see your interactions with the customer and realize that you're
Right.
not there to just do technical support. So that's product.
Yes.
What about finance?
Yes. Finance. Yeah. And remember here, we talked about like finance. It can have this cost center focus. They usually look at costs, they look at numbers. So of course we need to speak their language, right? And I think there's many ways to do this, of course, but they like forecasts. They do forecasts to the leadership team. They do that to the board. And if we can talk about like how we can actually forecast our retention rate based on leading indicators, that type of discussion will pique their interest for sure.
So totally. And there's another aspect of forecasting to looking at the cost associated with generating and retaining revenue. And
Yeah.
that's where we get into this idea of capacity planning. And we go
Mm.
over this in a lot of detail in our head of customer success program. But I also want to be able to show what it's going to actually take from a headcount standpoint to do the things that we need to do to hit our goals
Yeah.
as a company. And so that also plays into this from a financial planning standpoint. So being
Yeah.
able to provide all of that to finance is important. But one thing that we talked about again before we started recording is cash flow and how that differs from some of the metrics that we use
Mm.
in customer success. And so talk
Yeah.
about that real quick in how that relates
No,
to
but
finance.
I think, of course, we have these, like we talked about the NRR KPIs and the cost of churn, and those things will always resonate with the finance team. But something that we sometimes overlook is also cash flow, because I know for sure that's top of mind for finance. They have to look after the cash. And like a customer that's successful, they will pay on time. And that's going to be hugely important for finance to know, and that we know that in customer success, because a successful customer, if they don't pay, it's quite easy for us to lock them out of our tool or whatever we can do there, and and then they will pay, of course. So I think it's a huge difference on cash flow questions to make. Are we making our customers successful? They will pay. We will have less problems catching up with late payments or defaults and so on. I think that's also talking their language.
Exactly. Yeah, I always like to say, because we've obviously in the last few years gone through several downturns or just
Mm.
where the economy is questionable. And I always remind people that when your customer has, even if it's a virtual stack of invoices from vendors, you want to make sure that you're at the top of that stack. You're going
Mm.
to be the one when they're having to decide who to pay.
Right.
You want to make sure that you're at the top of the stack to get paid because obviously getting cash from your customers is absolutely critical. And when they're having to make decisions about who to pay, they're going to pay the vendors from whom they're getting the most value. That's how it works.
Right.
So you want to be at the top of that stack. Like you said, successful customers pay on time. So
Right.
that's finance. I think that's super important. But marketing and sales.
Yes. And here, I think, yeah, I think we touched on this several times in the pod. But if we can help sales and marketing do acquisition better, easier, faster, which is what they're measured on in most cases, we will get their attention and they will definitely see our importance, right? So I think, of course, here, advocacy, testimonials, references, all these things are very important. And I think more and more a modern sales and marketing team, they will appreciate that and they see how important it is. And at the Impact Day, we talked about this concept of earned growth and how a lot of times actually acquisition comes from customer success. Customers talk, customers change jobs, and they bring you in if they like you. So I think there's a lot here, but is there anything you want to add as well there?
Yeah, I would just say again, with sales and marketing, you want to lead with something positive. And so what I like to do is also bring to them our ideal customer profile. That's something that sales and marketing talk about a lot. But if I can actually bring to them and say, hey, here are the characteristics of our customers that are thriving, that are growing, that are also advocating for us, right? Here are the characteristics of those customers that will help them figure out who they should market to and who they should sell to. But also if I can say, and by the way, for our ICP, here are some of the ways that they use the product. Here's some of the things they talk about when they talk about their goals. Here's some of the things that they find to be important. If you can provide that to sales, that insight might help them close a customer faster. It might help them close a customer at a higher contract value. And I will tell you what, if you help sales close more customers or close customers faster or just make more money from a customer, you are now their best friend.
Oh, yeah.
And now they're going to listen to you. And that's when you can come in later and say, oh, and by the way, here's what a bad fit customer looks like. Let's try not to close these types of customers. But you can start with the positive.
Oh, yeah. Well, definitely. I think that's a great point. All right. So let's also now talk to, like, how do we win over the leadership team here and the C-levels if we see they are not really see the importance of customer success where we're at right now?
Yeah. Again, we're always talking about speaking the language of our audience. So if our audience is the C-level or leadership team, what's important to them?
Yeah.
And we know that at least in a software as a service business, it's going to be something like net revenue retention is probably the North Star metric. It's the primary KPI. If you're not in a SaaS business, there's probably still something similar to that. That's going to be your main focus. And so the best way to get their attention is to talk about that.
I think this is really important. And what I think it's too rare that we in customer success or heads of customer success just sit down with our leadership team and say, basically, today we're at like 102% NRR. And I have a plan here to get us to, say, 110, 120% NRR by end of next year or whatever the time frame is. If you sit down with your leadership team and you lead in with that, I'm sure you will have their attention.
Yeah,
I'm sure you will get to the important. You will be on the important list.
absolutely. It's exactly what sales would do, right?
Yeah, sales do that all the time. And when you appoint a new head of sales, that's the first discussion you probably have is, okay, what do you think we can grow? How much can we grow? And what do you need to get there?
Right.
And if you sit down, you have this plan and you say, we can get us to this percent NRR, but we need to add 2, 10, 20 more people or resources. We need to fix these issues. We need to get these tools in place. We need to train the team on these skills. You will get that, right?
Because you're speaking their language.
Yes. So I think that's to win them over. You need to speak their language. And I think you need to be a little bit bold here.
Okay. So on that point though,
yes,
as a head of customer success, the thing that I hear a lot is, yeah, but what if we don't hit the goal? So
right.
I just said, we can get to 120% NRR, but what if we don't hit that goal?
No, but I think that's also, as you say, that's a common like pushback or like a obstacle to do this. But again, if we take the parallel here to sales, do they always hit their growth targets? Do they always achieve their goals? I think that's no. They put up a target. They, of course, believe they can hit, but it's also and another way to see to that discussion is also, okay, maybe we hit 118%. We didn't hit 120, or we hit 115. But what would have happened if we did not do all these things that we needed to do to get there? Maybe would be at 95% NRR. So I think it's a valid comment, and I think it's something any leader will have to face, right? I need to, of course, consider not hitting my target, but I will do everything in my power to hit that target, and I will have a solid plan that I can back up and drill down. And I have built my plan, and I believe in my plan, and that's what I'm going to execute on.
And that's what happens when you exist in reality. You build a plan, you have a target, and you work the plan. And if everything goes according to plan, we're going to hit that target. So I don't see this being something different for customer success than any other part of the organization. But I do see that pushback happening more frequently. Yeah. And I'll tell you again, we have our head of customer success program that's starting on October 9th, 2023. Yes. If you're listening to this around the time that we publish, this is the stuff we talk about. And again, you don't have to come to the training, but I want you to at least think about how to address these things, how to deal with this. But this is the kind of stuff that we talk about and we address in the training. So if this is something that you're feeling like, I'm not confident that I can put together a plan that would be successful. That's what our training is for. I'm not gonna promote it any more than that, but just that's what we talk about.
Yeah. And I think that's how you get momentum, is when you have a real plan that you believe in, that you're going to do everything you can to achieve. Sometimes you just get a target pushed down. This is the number you need to hit. And then you're going to have pushback all around you.
Wow. What you just said is really just blew my mind. Because how often, as a head of customer success, are you given a goal?
Yes.
And you figure out how to reach it. The difference here is that you go to your executive leadership and you come up with the goal. And now you're afraid that you might not reach it. This just all popped into my head. But essentially, when we're given a goal, we will figure out a way to reach it, but we're not confident enough to come up with our own goal. And we're not confident enough to think that we could reach it. And that needs to change.
Yes. And I think this is where you start getting everybody to understand the importance of the team, of what you do in customer success. So very critical part of this is this last thing we talked about.
So with that, let's lock down the 3 very practical things that someone in this situation should and can do.
And here I think the number one thing we talked about all the way through here is that, similar to how sales are really good at advocating for them, customer success, we need to be equally good, maybe even better as it is right now, to advocate for ourselves.
Totally. I would add that we need to lead with a positive. Like I said, bring something that makes the person that you're talking to on the team that you're addressing feel good. And then you can bring up negative stuff later, but lead with a positive.
And the last thing here is that you, whether you're an individual contributor in the customer success team or you're head of customer success, you need to build your plan on how to improve net revenue retention and by when. By doing that, you will be important no matter what. So thanks everyone for listening, and check out the training that starts October 9th. If you're head of customer success, that you will get a lot of tools there to help build your plan. And see you soon. We'll be back next week. Hey, thanks for listening. Do you want to bring your customer success to the next level? Check out Impact Academy. We have training programs for customer success managers and for leaders in customer success.